Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Sauer. I'm the Assistant Director for Career and Employer Engagement at Magna Center. I'm also the career coach for the School of Vision Media and Performing Arts. I'm happy to see that there's a lot of students here that I know and I've worked with, which is really great. And for those that don't know me, I'm the career coach you would see if you're TV, radio, film, journalism, music, anything in the arts, even marketing as well. We've got a great session today, so I'm glad that everyone took the time out to join us. We've got two really great alumni of Brooklyn College who actually utilized the Magna Center, and they've got some great stories, and I want to speak with them about their experiences at Imagine Documentaries and at ABC News. First up, we're actually going to hear from Marcos Suarez, who is a recent grad of Brooklyn College, and he's been interning at Imagine Documentaries. Now, just really quick for everyone's point of reference, I did put the link in the email to everyone that was registered for this event. Imagine Documentaries is part of Imagine Entertainment, and then Imagine Entertainment is a company that was created. One half of the founders of that company is Ron Howard, who is a very famous, influential director. So I'm hoping people will take some time to kind of do the research in terms of Ron Howard. But let's just jump right in. I want to introduce Marcos and thank him for his time for being with us today. And Marcos, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you were doing, what experiences you had before Imagine Documentaries.
All right, so yeah, my name is Marcos Suarez. I didn't start off in Brooklyn College. I originally was in LaGuardia Community College, and I was studying liberal arts because I didn't know there was a major in film, but I had the intention of working in going to Brooklyn College. So once I made it to Brooklyn College, I just wanted to prepare myself for a career after college, and I spent a lot of my first year there in the career center, going to these events where I got to learn about all these things. I had no idea what a resume was supposed to look like, especially when it came to just being a film student. I was just picking up a lot of gigs, trying to apply for everything that I could, and volunteering to a whole bunch of short films and making as many connections as I could. So while I was an undergrad, I got the chance to intern with places like Dreamville, which is, if you guys are familiar with J. Cole, that is his label. I had the opportunity to intern with the Mr. Organization, which is a male modeling competition. I had the opportunity to intern with HBO Max. And then eventually I was interning with Imagine Documentaries. And in between, I also got to work with Pepsi as a cinematographer, and was working at an after school program as a film mentor for middle school kids. So yeah.
So my question is, so then how did you find these opportunities? I mean, were there any specific websites, or was it word of mouth, or?
That's a great question. For Dreamville, just me being a fan of J. Cole, that was my favorite rapper. I was just very I was always following managers in those companies, and eventually one of them posted that they were looking for videographers and editors. And so I took the opportunity to just write to them, let them know that I was just a fan of the culture that I felt they had in their production company, and sent them a reel and told them I wanted to work with them. And within the next 2 hours, they just told me, show up tomorrow, 7 o'clock, you'll be shooting for about 10 hours. And I was like, all right, cool. So yeah, that was just finding the opportunity and being a fan. The Mist Organization was more of a word of mouth situation where I knew people because I had participated in one of those competitions just because I was trying to overcome some fears with public speaking and stuff like that. So it was just something I took a shot at. In the midst of that, I made connections, and they reached out to me the following year asking me to be their video editor and videographer. HBO Max, I was just looking on websites for anything that was around. And I applied, and then they eventually got back to me, and that's how I got the opportunity. Now, Imagine Documentaries, well, Pepsi, let me go to Pepsi now. So Pepsi was a very interesting one because I actually got this opportunity because of a student in the film uh, department. I was always volunteering on Thesis films, and I still do. But being that they liked working with me, one of these students had a girlfriend that was a manager to a supermodel, a Victoria's Secret model, and she managed a whole bunch of other people. And he got the opportunity to shoot this Pepsi commercial, and it asked me to be his assistant cinematographer. Um, Unfortunately, he did have anxiety attack in the midst of shooting, so I had to take over, and that's pretty much how I got the opportunity to shoot the Pepsi commercial. Um, and Imagine Documentaries came after I graduated. I found myself in the situation where I felt like I didn't have an internship where I got to work with a group of people who had like a high status. And I remember I came to Michael and I asked him, I told him my situation. I was like, look, I have these experiences, but for the most part, I've been in situations where I have to work alone. Like they give me a camera, and they give me a computer, and I'm kind of just doing everything on my own. I want to be able to learn and grow. And so he set me up, and me and him had meetings, multiple meetings about my resume and putting it together. We made our adjustments. And once that happened, I started getting um, emails left and right about job opportunities. Um, and I actually did get an opportunity to work with a brand that I was a huge fan of, would have had me on the field all the time. But Imagine Documentaries was also offered to me. And I felt like that was an opportunity for me to grow in a different way. It wasn't going to put me in the field that I wanted to work in, but it was going to give me the chance to make the proper connections at a larger scale and learn a lot more. Even if it meant taking more time than it would to get to where I want to be in the film world. So, yeah.
Good points. I mean, there's a lot of really great things that you mentioned here, and I want everyone to keep in mind, right? So, um, networking. I mean, wow, work your network. Who's in your network, who can advocate for you. You just never know. I mean, you were part of this program, and then you rolled the dice, and you were like, hey, I could kind of do this too. So you're always working your network. Who's in your network? Um, and again, word of mouth. Always kind of like know that you could always kind of hit someone up about what kind of opportunities are available. So that's amazing stuff. I like hearing about all that. And then, of course, with the Pepsi thing, it's unfortunate, but then you were able to kind of be adaptable and hop in. So that's really great too. One of the other things that I want to mention too is with the resume. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think when we met, did you have a summary on your resume or no? When we first met?
I did, but it was missing keywords
Uh-huh.
that just were important. I had my own version of a summary. It wasn't the best summary. But yeah, you definitely changed that up for me.
Did you have Pepsi mentioned or HBO mentioned in that version of the summary?
I did not. I did not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to bring that up because our other speaker, Jehosephat, and we'll ask him later when he's here, the same situation happened where he worked on an HBO documentary and he didn't mention it in his summary either. So I think once we changed, I'm pretty sure that's what we did, right? With your summary that we mentioned HBO and we mentioned Pepsi and all that.
Mhm.
And I really do think that was one of the things that led to people kind of looking at your resume and you getting phone calls, because having that name value in the first or second sentence of the summary and it's at the top of the resume. And remember, for everyone that's here, people looking at your resume for like 8 seconds. Once they see recognizable brands like that, that's going to capture people's attention. So that's super huge. I'm glad to hear that. And like I said, same thing with Jehosephat, and we'll talk to him later on about that too, because I know for a fact that helped him as well. And I'm glad that your resume worked, and you knew your resume was working because you got all these phone calls. Um, how was it like at Imagine, like in the beginning, like when you first started? What were some of the things that you learned? What are some of the things that you've enjoyed about being there?
The first 2 weeks, they were super welcoming. They constantly set up meetings for me to meet people. It was honestly like they didn't even put me to work. They had me meeting producers and directors and who were involved in any project that was happening at the time. So at the time, they had a project called We Feed People, a Louis Armstrong documentary, Judy Bloom, and they had a few, and they just had me meeting whoever they thought that I was going to be able to learn the most from. And yeah, pretty much that was the first 2 weeks where it was just a lot of just meeting people and then also guiding me through certain tasks that they were going to have me involved in. So yeah, it was just extremely welcoming, and yeah, it was a good intro into just what I would be getting myself into if I was to work in the industry, more specifically in producing.
Hmm, okay, good. So, again, meeting industry professionals and expanding that network, basically. What are some of the daily duties or tasks that you have and you've had while working there?
Well, something I love about Imagine is that they're super flexible. They took note of the fact that I was well rounded and was good at doing a little bit of everything. And so that's exactly what they have me doing. They always ask me, um, what do you want to do? And what project do you want to work on? And because of that, I was just like, I want to learn a little bit of everything. So some days they have me working on cachet cards and um, reconciliations. They have me working on set as a PA. They have me picking up gear for the cinematographers, basically doing AC work um, and setting up equipment. It's always different. It really just depends on what you want out of the internship. Of course, they're gonna have you sometimes doing helping out the office manager whenever there's no work to be done. But it's always different. It's always just a little bit of everything.
It sounds like a really great variety um, of experiences, right? So, great variety of experiences, and this goes back to what you had said earlier, right? About um, you had been mostly working on your own, right? Prior to this, freelance
Right.
gigs, things like that, and like you had said, you wanted to work and in more of like a collaborative type environment. And is that what this ended up being so far? It's more like it's a variety of different things, and you're working with other people. I mean, is that one of the big takeaways that you're going to have from this?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm working with people constantly. Just even the fact that once I finish something, I have to let someone know. Like that's never been the case for me when I'm working on my own because clearly I'm working on my own. But yeah, like even when I'm doing research right now for a David Blaine project, and I have to let them know when I finish a certain thing. And we also just have these discussions on where we think certain films or what direction certain films should go. So yeah, it's very collaborative and just very informative in general.
That sounds great. And there's something else that you had mentioned too. Whenever I meet with students, and this could be the same for some of the students that are here, sometimes students will take on a lot of different roles, right? So you're in the creative realm, you may be a PA, script supervisor, you may be a photographer or an AD or what cinematographer, video editor, whatever it may be. I know that when I meet with students, a lot of people wear a lot of hats, which is really great. And in that sense, and you touched upon this, you're becoming like this complete package in a sense. You can do a lot of things and you're versatile, and that's what they liked, and that's what you were able to get from that. So that's really great. Um, but also on the flip side too, whenever I speak with students, with your resume, you also have to know what your career path is going to be ultimately. Also,
Yeah, I can definitely speak on that,
oh
for
please, yeah.
sure. I want to work as a cinematographer and director. And so I knew this. I knew that, like, before getting into this internship, I knew that if you want to work on a certain path, you kind of have to like work up this ladder. Like, let's say if you want to be an editor, you kind of have to be an assistant editor and work your way up to being an editor and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, that's exactly that matters completely. That doesn't change a thing. I think that did give me the chance to work in this company. But overall, if you want to work in a specific place in the film world, working on a specific role, which I've just learned a lot the past 3 months, you have to kind of stay in that role. It's kind of like, just, it sucks that it sounds this way, but you kind of have to be in a box for a good amount of time. The luxury that I've had of working in Imagine is that when I'm on set, I ask everyone questions, but more specifically, all the cinematographers. I ask them, "How did you get here? And what is your advice on um, just making it here a little bit faster? Than what would you have done differently?" Um, and I get these answers, and so I have certain answers that I get out of that, and they're very much just had to stick in that role, being assistant cinematographer, working in rental houses, and being in that world. And yeah, so I think that's super important. I think if you know exactly what you want to do in the film world, I would suggest that you um, aim towards internships and jobs that'll leave you in that space and give you the experience in that space.
That's really great because again, it's like it's giving people a comprehensive knowledge of how the industry works. So when you go on these interviews, that's great because you can kind of pull from that, like so even though you're not going to be a production assistant forever because you want to be a cinematographer or a director in the future, but you've had these experiences so they understand that you have this well-rounded knowledge. And again, that's what everybody has to think about. That's here, and any students I work with, when you go on these interviews, you have to get your story straight. Who are you? How are you marketing yourself? How are you leveraging the things that you did in the past and whatnot? And where are you going now with it? So that's really great. I wanted to ask in terms of well, two things I was going to ask. One is in terms of like the interview process, and I don't know if we had done any mock interviews, we might have talked about potential questions they may ask you, and this ties back into how are you marketing yourself. Were there any tips, and you don't have to, you might not remember all the questions they may have asked during the interview, but were there any questions that stood out, or is there any advice in terms of the interviewing process there at Imagine that you wanted to share with students?
Ooh, you know, I don't remember the questions that they asked. I think, well, something that I tried to stick with was just a quick summary. Something I remember from our the events that you would host in Brooklyn College was having that 1 minute pitch, and I kind of used that. We didn't get to have a mock interview, but I did use that when they asked me, uh, tell me a little bit about yourself. And with that, I gave them that 1 minute pitch. My name is Marcos Suarez. I just graduated from Brooklyn College, and um, I want to do this. And the reason why I'm applying to this job is because I see this and I love the culture in this place. And it changes for every job, for every place that you apply to. But just I would say that the main key is just, yeah, one, know your story, and two, that 1 minute elevator pitch. Just be able to tell them exactly who you are, what you want, what you've done, and how you can provide for them within that 1 minute. other than that, it's pretty much just I actually wrote, I don't know if I can, I actually had every answer. Um,
To the questions that they could potentially ask. Was that that
right.
worksheet that I think I share with students? I must have shared
Yeah.
that with you.
Um, I had like every answer prepared and I would memorize these things just in case they would ask those questions. And they never really asked every question, but it was just the hardest ones that yeah, so yeah. Why should we hire you? Describe yourself. And just being able to ask them questions as well. You want to seem interested. So interested in what their work environment is like and whether you can grow in there. Um, so yeah, something I would ask them was what type of, how can you grow in this the specific position that I'm applying for, or what are past like successful stories with past interns, or what type of workplace is this? Like, you just have questions that would make you seem interested in what they're about.
That's excellent. Yeah, no, that's really great. And again, for students that have not met with me yet, that's definitely one of those things that we have to meet about, which is, getting your story straight, having answers to those questions. I do have something called an interview worksheet, um, which Marcos is talking about, and that's where you write in your answers, and that's where you kind of see it on the screen. Like, all right, these are the main things I'm going to say. Leverage the experiences that you've had, so you can memorize it, or as long as if you memorize it, it comes off as genuine. I mean, these are all talking points, and it's about getting your story straight. And definitely questions too. If you just ask one question or you don't ask any questions, that's not great. Yeah, they're not going to think that you're interested. So, Marcos, that's really fantastic. Um, and then again, we had those conversations about that. So I'm glad that you were able to apply them to this interview. Then that's how you were able to kind of get in. And I know, you spoke about some of the things that you do there. Are there any kind of challenges or things that you noticed that you had to kind of like adapt to? I mean, like, is it fast-paced environments or anything to that effect?
So something about Imagine that was super interesting to me was that um, they teach you something and then they leave you alone. And I don't know if it's just me, but for a while I was just like, wow, like they're not telling me if I'm doing anything wrong. And I feel like I'm doing everything wrong. So I eventually ended up talking to one of the producers and I asked him, I was like, look, just out of curiosity, I don't want to like be doing anything wrong. I don't want to make your jobs harder. Can you let me know if I'm doing something wrong? And he started laughing and he said, well, that's the whole point. Like, we want you to kind of try to figure it out on your own. If you're doing something wrong, we're gonna let you know. Um, so I would say the challenging part was just kind of doubting myself and not knowing if I'm doing the right thing. But I think their whole thing is just like they want you to figure it out. So I would say the only challenging thing was that it's not fast paced, um, but my anxiety has me doing everything fast and just kind of trying to get it done so that I don't make a bad impression. Um, so yeah, it's not fast paced. They just want things to be detailed and just go over your things twice before you send it to them and before you make a final decision with anything. It's pretty much that. Yeah.
That's pretty good. No, it's good to know, and it's good that you had a conversation with them about that too, which is really great. you know um, One of the questions I tell students to ask, especially during the interview process: what are the expectations of the person that's to be hired in this role? What do you want them to accomplish? So that's a great question too. um, okay, that's great. Marwa Ikmaze is our Magna Center intern for the semester, and she has a few questions as well. Marwa, if you have one.
Yeah, all right. So, because you mentioned that they left you to work on your own, so you obviously had to develop some skills, whether by learning through the team or just by working on your own. So I wanted to ask, basically, what are some of the most important professional and field-related skills that you developed as an intern through working in film production, but also how did your knowledge and experience on film production shift or grow before and after interning, whether it's in Imaginary or somewhere else?
Okay, so all right, one, the professional aspect. Something as simple as Excel, like just knowing how to use that is super important. And I found, like, ironically, like there's so many hard things to do in this world, and Excel was the hardest thing for me because I had no idea how to use it. So even when it comes to call sheets and just everything, just keeping track of film festivals or just data, um, I think knowing how to use Excel, like actually knowing how to use Excel, is it'll give you a little head start. That was just like the biggest headache for me. Um, but when I took documentary is not the world that I want to work in, but I took this opportunity because of the connection and the connections and the education I could get out of it. So I went into that, and within like the first 3 weeks, they had me working assistant and editor, and some of the things I learned in documentary class in Brooklyn College, I was like quickly applying to this job, which surprised me. Like we were doing the exact same thing that we did in class, which was script writing, or just I don't know how to call it. We call it script writing in documentary, but basically it's just writing the words that everyone says in these interviews and stuff like that. I hope I'm answering your question.
Yeah. Okay, so just to follow up then, what are some of the do's and don'ts when you're working?
Great question. You don't want all right, you do's. You want to be a likable person on set. Don't ever make it seem like you don't want to do something. You want to do everything, even the worst things, like you love it. Something I learned on set was actually Ron Howard said it. He said, you want people who want to be here, like you have to start at the bottom at some point. And you want to be around likable people and good energy. So I would say just have a good attitude and seem like just humble and grateful to have the opportunity that you have in these situations. I would say also try to be organized. That's a big do. And yeah, just do everything like you love it. Don't half-ass anything, and have a great attitude and don't half-ass anything. I know something else Ron Howard said, that 80% of the time they rehire people because they like them. Like it's literally because they like them. You can learn almost anything. If you made it this far in the film world, you can learn almost anything. But having a bad attitude is not something that people want to be around. So yeah, just having a good attitude all throughout, and yeah. And I guess the don'ts is just the opposite of that. Just don't have a bad attitude. Don't be disorganized. Be on time. Something I know about, this is no shade to, well, it's all shade to the thesis films that I've worked on in Brooklyn College. A lot of students are usually really late. And this is just a thesis film, but I think that's practice for real life. And just be on time. Be 10 minutes before whatever the call time is, or whatever time you're supposed to be at the office. Because being late is just a bad look. And yeah.
That's a very good point. Very, very good points, because it's word of mouth, right?
Yeah.
If you're reliable and you've got good energy, good personality, you're adaptable, that's why word of mouth happens. You know, I mean, I think I was speaking with, might have been with Marwo, one of our other college assistants here at Magna Center, about how certain directors will rehire the same crew.
Yeah.
Because they're used to them. James Cameron's done it, and a lot of other people have done that kind of thing. So that's super important. Even now at this level, just working on thesis films, definitely, because it's good practice, a good habit for what the expectations will be when you're at an Imagine Documentaries, which is great. All right. So did you get a chance to meet Ron Howard at all, or Was he ever there
last
or?
week. Last week on Friday he came into the office. There were people out because of COVID, and I was the only one that could make it, so I ended up showing up. And yeah, he was having meetings for some upcoming films that they're working on.
That's excellent. That must have been amazing.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. So these things that he was mentioning, was that from the meeting last week?
Right. Yeah. He's really cool. He's really like a sweet person. You know, you think that these people have these like this stature and they just wouldn't talk to you or pay mind to you. No, like he was just really nice. And I think everyone in Imagine, just in general, like they'll introduce you as an intern. They'll be like, "Oh, okay, cool. What school did you go to? What do you want to do? Like, what is like?" They're very like friendly and just open, just knowing about you and giving you advice.
That's excellent. That's when you know that you are at an internship or at a production company that is worth it, instead of just giving you work and then go work on this stuff. And they don't want to get to know you. You know, sometimes that internship experience people have, but that's not what this is. This sounds like they do want to know you. They want to take, vested interest in you. And then in the future, you never know. I mean, maybe there's going to be a project that you can be hired on as a result of this internship.
Which has happened. Which has happened. The intern before me only was interning for 2 months, and then they put him on a project. Yeah, and they did offer me projects here and there, but I just wasn't. Uh, I'm just very big on just making sure I'm on the right path.
Right.
I don't want to make my resume, fill my resume with the wrong things.
Right.
So yeah.
Hey, I think you are on the right path, and there's a lot of really great experiences here, which I think is fantastic. If anybody has any questions, please put it in the chat. We do have a couple of questions here. Our other speaker is here, and we'll get started in just a few minutes. But let's go over some of these questions, Marcos. So Jenna is asking, you mentioned how working on thesis films has given you experience credibility. Does working on a student films and non-thesis class also have value on the resume? She says, I haven't gotten much professional experience outside of school during her college years.
So they don't know what projects are thesis films and which ones are not. It's pretty much just a short film on your resume and it has its name on it. So I think just take advantage of that. Make sure you put your role in it and the name of the thesis film and and the name of the film in general, and put that out there. If you are a cinematographer or even an editor and you have a reel, again, they don't know which one is the thesis and which one isn't. They just know that you've worked on a whole bunch of projects. So yeah, don't think so much about whether it's credible enough to just put on your resume. I think just let it be a short film and that's it. I didn't even get the chance to really put my thesis on my resume because I didn't finish it up until like later on. So yeah, and it wasn't public in general, so I didn't want to put something that they couldn't find. So yeah.
Good point. Good point. And again, I think it really comes down to that wealth of knowledge. You've worked on sets, you have the ability to work and collaborate with others. I think that's fine in terms of it being a thesis film or if it's a freelance gig. I think any kind of content students can develop while they're in school and then even afterwards is going to be super important. That's why whenever I meet with students, we talk about adding projects, adding student films, things like that to the resume, because it just helps in terms of being able to leverage you as a professional. So, okay, Wendell actually has a question too. Do you remember any tasks on set, non-administrative duties as a production assistant they asked you to perform and you were unsure if you were doing it correctly?
Yeah, almost everything. They had me helping gaffers and just build sets with them, and just gaffing wasn't something that I was used to, doing, or even on a professional set. Also, something as simple as just ordering meals, which is like something they'll have you do on bigger sets. At some point, you're just helping everything that's going on set, and then they'll be like, all right, lunchtime is this time, you can order for everyone. Not knowing how to go about that on a busy set was just like, I don't want to interrupt anyone, but I kind of have to get this done as well. So ask questions. Something a producer told me was while I was asking her for cinematography advice because she had worked on Marvel films as a assistant cinematographer, and she told me that something about PAs is that they expect you to know nothing. Like they expect you to kind of just be one of those people who are still figuring it out. So just ask questions. Ask questions, or if you have another PA on set with you, ask them before you ask like the bigger people, just so that you can save your time from just looking a certain way. But I think it's okay to ask questions, and also do your research. I know that before I got on set as a PA ever, I was like Googling how to be a good PA and YouTubing it, and they actually have videos. They have videos on how to do certain things. So yeah, yeah, I think I wasn't sure of a lot of things, but you figure it out. You figure it out on set, and there's also ways to just learn about it before you get on set as well.
That's great. Yeah, no, that's really great because then again, it shows adaptability. And like I said, I mean, you can find answers to almost anything on YouTube.
Yeah.
This goes back to the whole thing about Excel too. And I know some people are like, oh no, Excel. You could definitely go on YouTube and learn about Excel on there in terms of whether you have to create formulas or it's pivot tables or VLOOKUP or any of those fun things that are functionalities on Excel. But definitely go on YouTube, check those out. I'm glad that you mentioned that. Yeah, I mean, because some people think like, no, Excel, that's like for accounting or something, but it's like it could go across the board. So it is super important skill. I always hear this. Excel is probably one of the top things that students will say that they wish they knew before they graduated, or is the first thing they had to learn when they got into their other job. And we're talking about across all kinds of fields. So
Yeah, I was a little embarrassed. I had like my phone like on my desk, like hiding, like going through YouTube tutorials while I was in the office. Like, okay, like let me make sure no one's looking at me and trying to learn it on the spot. But yeah, once you get it down, it's a piece of cake.
Since you mentioned that documentary is not what you really always wanted to do, did you ever feel like you were on the right track, or like your journey is kind of delayed because you're not doing what exactly you want to do at the moment?
So a huge part of making my decision to go to Imagine was that it was like, I don't want to be in documentary. Am I making the right choice? I can just go and work for another company that offered me a position, doing exactly what I want, working towards the thing that I want to do. But um, it was just, I felt like it was worth taking the time to be in Imagine to just get the knowledge that I needed to get. Like I just felt like this is not exactly what I want to do in the world that I want to work in, but I'm gonna be able to learn some things that I'm not gonna learn at this other place. And if I was able to get the opportunity before, I can get it again after. Um, so delayed, no. I don't feel like it's delayed. Mainly because I just learned that it's a long road in general. Um, but I also I learned shortcuts. I learned the ways to just have to. I don't have to do a lot of the things that I don't have to go through certain mistakes that a lot of people go through because I got to meet cinematographers that told me the better ways to do it. Um, so yeah, I don't feel like I'm delaying my experience. I think it really just depends on what you know, what you want to do, and how you think this specific internship or job opportunity is going to help you.
that's a really good point. And it's a good question. It was good something to think about too, because I tell students, again, you're getting this holistic knowledge of how the industry works. Two things, Marcos, though. I mean, again, we could always meet too what your next step is once this internship is done. And some of the things I'm going to ask you, and the same thing I would ask any of the students that are here. Um, what did you accomplish while you were there? Who did you meet? And you said it yourself. You spoke with cinematographers, producers. You met Ron Howard,
Right.
legendary director.
Yeah.
Name value of Imagine now on your resume. The next place that you go, you're definitely going to get phone calls because again, we leveraged before this, going back to earlier, we leveraged HBO, we leveraged Pepsi, and now we're going to leverage Imagine. and now the kind of doors are open to possibilities for you moving forward. We just need to kind of add that to the resume,
Right.
which you will do. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's also something that I've gotten the chance to also have, like, I'm kind of in charge of adding certain crew members to a program that we use. And with that, I've had the opportunity to have a look at what their resumes look like, and who picks them up and why they get picked up. And yeah, it's like a cheat code, kind of. Like, I've gotten the chance to just work on specific projects that I can add to my resume now. Yeah, Apple, Amazon, Hulu. So yeah, I think that's also just one of the pluses of working at Imagine. You're going to be put on specific projects that you can put on your resume, and that'll definitely get you picked up at certain places, because I think that matters in general. Name value.
Absolutely. One final question, and then we're going to move on to our other Brooklyn College alum who is here. From Wendell, have you seen opportunities at Imagine for horizontal movements to other parts of Imagine, like Imagine Entertainment?
That's something I'm trying to work on right now. Yeah, that's kind of like the goal. I want to. There are specific people that I've heard about that I want to meet, and now that I know that they're just they allow it. Like, if you want to meet a specific person, they will let you. Or they'll find a way to get that to happen. I want to do that. So I'm trying to find a way to work my way towards Imagine Entertainment. But the problem is that that is in LA. So yeah. So documentary is big in New York. Narratives are more worked on in LA. All over the world, but mainly in LA. So I would have to be ready and I would want to move. Well, I would have to want to move to California if I wanted to make that move. So that's the tricky part, where the main part of the film business is, and what you want your next move to be.
Excellent point. And then, is LA in the cards in the future or not? So, what do you think? Do you think it's in the future for you?
I love New York, but when you have dreams and you have certain goals, you might have to just make that sacrifice. So, we'll see.
Have you been out there? Have you ever been out to LA?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've been a few times. Yeah.
Well, I would suggest everybody here, if going to LA, check it out. Obviously, that's the other major market for a lot of people in media. So it's not the only one. Of course, there's other markets throughout the United States, but LA, of course, a lot of stuff that's happening in film is out there. Film and television is out there in LA. So, Marcos, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I mean, I think you shared so much amazing advice, a lot of really great insight, and I'm confident in your future. So this is really great. So I think you're going to be doing some really great stuff, and we hope we can have you back again in the future, and you can tell us, where you're going. What are you going to do next? So I know that we're going to speak. Should students stay in touch with you through, like, maybe LinkedIn or?
Yeah, I would give you I want to give you my email, but I don't want to give you my email because I don't know how many people are just going to end up asking me questions. Right. I'm always open to helping out thesis films. I love working on films in general. I've still been working on thesis films with Brooklyn College students. So yeah, I'm always open to answering questions and just giving my advice on, stuff like that. Even internships. So I don't know. I think you can add me on LinkedIn. I guess you can ask me questions through there. And I'm always going to answer. Like, I like helping people.
Excellent. That's really great. And that's why we're really proud of having alum like yourself who like to come back and speak with students and share that advice. So again, thank you so much. And, definitely stay in touch, follow or add Marcos on LinkedIn, and we'll take it from there. So thank you again, Marcos. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, cool.
All right. So really great stuff. Really glad to have Marcos here. Knowing him as a student is fantastic. And his ability to be here to speak with students is tremendous. And that brings us to our next speaker, who's also a Brooklyn College alum, Jehosephat Bozeman. Here he is. Let me put him on. Here he is. Jehosephat Bozeman, Brooklyn College alum.
Hello.
A wealth of experience as well. Thank you so much for taking some time today to speak with me.
Yeah, I got time.
I'm hyping you up. You deserve it.
Yeah, I'm just me. So what do you want to know?
All
What
right.
do you want me to start with?
So, well, I mean, again, just like Marcos, to go back to this earlier point, when you and I met, Jehosephat, I don't know when that was, a long time ago. It was like maybe 7 years ago.
Yeah, we're around that time. Where did we start? I think I was trying to get in, like I already was in the industry,
Yeah.
but I was trying to like, advance my career. And I was like talking to you. I was like, all right, who do I go and speak to and who's the person to get in charge? And it was like, this guy, he does everything. And when I mean this guy, I mean Michael Sorrow, who helps everyone with film and media resumes. So I was like, okay. So I gave him my resume and he was like, we're gonna have to scrap all of this over. We're scratching all of this. No, we're taking this out, that out, and that out. And we started going on skill set, tools, what we can provide, and so forth. So I was trying to get a job in tech because I realized that's kind of the gateway. I think you were telling me, Mike, that my resume was too low for a production assistant, but not too, but I mean too high for a production assistant, but too low for a mid-level senior position. So we just was working out the kinks, and I think we was in the office all from even when school, like even once when the semester ended, all summer I was like back and forth in your office talking about job opportunities and what job opportunities we wanted to get. And it was just like, we were hitting so many brick walls. So many brick walls and I did some from my experience from HBO, from DC TV, from even working in Brooklyn College as well in the television department. We thought something had to give, right? So something really had to give. So I think I did a shot in the dark with A&E. It was like a straight shot in dark with A&E. I've been there for roughly a year and a half. It was I was being overworked, and it's just like I didn't have time for school, and I didn't have time for like me because I'm human at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I was like, it was time to go, and I quit. Like I quit before I got another job, and I told Mike, I was like, I can't take it no more. It was too much. So.
But before you get to that point, before you get to the next point after A&E, I just want to just add something here. I remember the main thing, and this goes back to Marcos too. We worked on your summary, right? And you didn't have the HBO documentary that you worked on. I don't think it was in the summary, or I think it was the chronological order was lower on the resume. And then once we added that HBO documentary to the summary itself, that made the big difference. No?
Yes, it did. Because I just went from chronological. I went from past experience to current experience, and we should have went from current experience to past experience. So once when we did that, then I was able to get a job at A&E, and I thought I was getting a job mostly in just being a video editor. Come to find out, I was a studio technician, so I was doing everything under the sun. So I went from doing video editing to video producing to running chyrons to live switching or technical directing, as they say, as well as line producing, and there's also like somehow calling shots on the channel, like saying, okay, we're not taking this shot, we're going somewhere else now. And I did that mostly for like live PD. I also did it for crime scene and investigations as well, when we were running our live show and we were simulcasting back and forth with the partners out in Australia. So we were doing that part, and it's like we were doing it for 16 hours a day. And well, I'm not gonna say 16. I'm gonna say maybe 12 to 13, but that's still a lot. That's still a lot a day, and it can have a wear and tear on the body. So I understand that that's paying your dues, but at the end of the day, you still got to have a life as well.
Did you have any studio experience before that?
I had a multi-cam class at I thought, why am I leaving out so many details? I
Because
had a
you have a lot of
multi-cam,
stuff to say.
a
There's a
lot of
lot.
yeah, it's a lot to say, and I'm trying to like omit, but I had a multi-camera class at Brooklyn College. That was one of the things that kind of helped me understand studio etiquette. And it was a multi-cam class, and it's like when you learn everything, you learn how to set cameras, on how to get the right lighting, how to get the right stories in certain playout service, how to live switch, how to assistant direct, how to regular direct, you know, how to get everything queued up, ready to go. So it prepped me for both how to do live news as well as do a live show and how to do sports as well. Because all even though it's all in live television, they are like each genre in itself is a different beast on its own. So it was great to have that class because that was one class I didn't like. I was early to. I showed up for, and it was something about taking initiative of doing, and I was mostly was doing everything. So that was what kind of got me prepped for A&E. But it's like once you get in the television industry, it's not like the film industry where it's like very like um can like you're conducive. You're more like in the television industry, you're thrown into the fire, and you just gotta make the best of certain situations,
Right.
And it's if you don't, and if you don't, you know, it it's not the end all be all, but it's just you can just not learn how to just be able to pick yourself back up because it's a learning experience when you're like we're all learning. Like even me, even though I've been in the industry for roughly about say 7 years, I'm still learning as I go. Like no one ever stops learning just because you get into this get in the door.
That's a very good point. And to go back, so I mean, again, when we met, there was a lot of technical knowledge that you were able to gain. So
Yeah. Learning how to use Avid Media Composer, which is an editing software which I think all the news channels use, with the exception of Fox, because Fox uses Final Cut. And I think it's Final Cut 7 Pro, I believe. So it's like learning media systems, learn how to edit on the fly as well, which is also a skill set because you got to be able to cut a package up in like 2 minutes and have it ready to go in the next and have it ready to go for the next 5 minutes. Like it is at five, but you got 3 minutes to cut it. It's very tedious, but it's like once you get used to it, it just becomes natural. It just becomes second nature to you. So learning how to edit, learning how to live switch, because that's also pressure. Like when you're a TD or a technical director, you're basically live switching your shots. You're setting up your shots, and you're also like the second in command next to the director. Like you're going to this shot, you're going to that shot, you're going to this, you're going to that, and it's basically impulse. So learning how to be a technical director, learning how to live switch between live shows and also live events as well. Producing. So like sometimes I'm like and this was at Annie. I'm writing lower thirds up. I'm writing up the lower thirds, the stuff that you see on your chyrons or the graphics you see on your screen. So I'm writing that up as we go. We're proofreading, spell checking, and also being sure we're able to stay in the standards of the FCC. So we're doing that. I was doing that. So it's just like it's like when you get your foot in the door, you start becoming what we call the jack of all trades. You're becoming the jack of all trades,
right.
as I say.
So holistic knowledge. I mean, you gained a holistic knowledge of so many different aspects. I mean, with A&E, I remember after you had left, we had met and we spoke about the resume, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sure that when we sat and we talked about what did you accomplish, what are we going to leverage from this?
So when after I left Annie, and I was just like a little beat, but I was a little relieved because I didn't have to like do the whole 18 hours again, or just running through the gauntlet. Me and Mike sat down and we said, okay, what did you learn? One, I'm not gonna get overworked anymore. I'm gonna work at my pace, and I'm also gonna take my time as well, and also take care of my body. That was one thing I learned. And then he said, okay, what did you learn in terms of skill set? Oh, okay. So what I learned in terms of skill set was to like, I was able to like break down a whole control room, build a whole control room from scratch, learning all the endpoints. So basically, I learned how to really do production, like really learn the back end of production, learning how to set up the graphics monitor, knowing how to set up the playback, know how to set up a playout operator, a playout server. Playout server is basically what you play out and what goes on the air. Playback is basically what you rewind, like certain clips or certain highlights, and then you send that back on air. So I learned how to do that. I learned how to build that and also know how to operate both. So I've learned how to edit on the fly. I've also gained a sense of like humility because I wasn't like because being that we were all working those crazy hours, we learned how to be professional and we know how to be courteous because being in the room with somebody for 18 hours a day can drive you insane. But we all learned, I learned purpose and goal behind that. When I left Andy, I knew everything. I knew how everything operates. I knew how to with skill sets. I developed new skill sets we as I was going along. And then when I came back to Mike, we was able to flush all of this out and we started reapplying again. So it was like when me and Mike met for the time in the summer after I left, he was like, "We doing this again?" I said, "Yes, we are." So let's just keep throwing more shots in the dark. And every week I was sitting down with Mike, I was like, okay, like, I got an interview for here, but they didn't call me back. I got an interview for here, they didn't call me back. I got an interview for here, but they want to pay me less. So we was just figuring out our the right fit for us, or what was we gonna do in terms of like trying to like get myself back in the game. So I had two interviews, two promising interviews. One was from the NBA, which was in Secaucus, New Jersey, and me and Mike was like, okay, we can get this, and we can hit this out of the park. And it was like when I showed up to the interview the first time, I had a hoodie, a white t-shirt, some sneakers, because I thought like because when you're in production, no one cares how you really dress. and and I sent the thank you note and everything else after the interview. But the interviewer, her name was Tiffany. She emailed me. No, she didn't email. She called me. She's like, "Okay, here's a new thing. Here's some things we need you to do. We're gonna redo this interview again, but this time you're gonna come in with a polo shirt or a nice little slack shirt, some slack pants, some nice shoes, and we're gonna do it again." I'm like, and I asked, I was like, "Why if we're in production?" She was like, "Because the NBA has a dress code that all of its employees must follow." A part of me wanted to make a joke. I was like, "Well, if Russell Westbrook could walk around with a dress and all that other stuff, then I mean, what's the problem?" Like, no, I'm like, that was here and there. But so I went back to the second interview and I aced it. And I was like, they was like, "We're gonna call you in 2 days to let you know the decision." So the day before I was gonna get my decision from the NBA, I had a phone call from because I did this other like I kind of was 'cause during the time of me leaving A&E. I'm sorry if I'm jumping all over the place. I was just sending my resume out, and it was one resume I sent out was to ABC, and the day before I got my talk. No, it was the day before. It was the Wednesday. I'm sorry. My mind is leaving me, but it was the Wednesday before the because the Friday I was getting the decision from the NBA, but Wednesday I got a phone call from Ryan Emilio who works at ABC, and he was like, "Hey, I like your resume. When can you come in and sit down and discuss further?" I said, "I mean, I can come in tomorrow," and he was like, "Okay, see you tomorrow at 12." So that Thursday I went in. We talked for a little bit. We chat because I think we were sitting in the cafeteria and we was chatting about the resume and all that other stuff. And then he said, "Let me show you around and see what we're doing." So he took me into this control room and I was like, "Oh, you guys are using the Sony 8000 to get to run the channel." He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "So you run the Sony," and I started breaking down what I learned from Andy on how the whole setup, excuse me, from learning from the whole setup, learning from Andy, learning their setup of how to build a control room from scratch, and I applied that to the interview I got from ABC, and and he told me this, and Nora ended up telling me this down like 5 months later, down in December. That was like the minute that you talked about the Sony 8000, and the minute you started talking about the wealth of knowledge of a control room, I already knew you got this job. It's like, you're hired. Right then and there. So once we did the interview wrap, he showed me around. We talked about certain things and I'm learning about unions and things we can and can't do, because we're a digital streaming team, and mostly when you're working in New York City and you're doing anything broadcast related, it goes through a union. So being that we on digital streaming, which is like the little loophole we got, we can get away with certain things. So that was the thing he told me at the interview. And once he told me what was my job entails, and once we was just laughing and talking and just like trying to get to know each other, he asked me, he's like, so when can you start for me? I was like, in 2 weeks. He's like, okay, see you in 2 weeks. So I was like, so 2 weeks. And then Friday I got the call, because it was Thursday, and then Friday I got the call from the NBA. And I remember this, and they said that I got the job. So I went to Mike. We went right back to Mike's office, and we started weighing out everything. I was like, look, this is the NBA, but this is also ABC. This is the NBA, and this is the Walt Disney. So we started we started writing down the pros and cons of both. And I think I was finishing up one class. It was one class I had to finish up before like finally receiving my diploma. And Mike was telling me, okay, the NBA, even though it's a great organization, a great place to work for, it's in Secaucus, New Jersey. So you got to finish one class up, and they got to travel from Secaucus to there. Is that something you want to be willing to do? He's like, but it's the NBA though. Okay. So then you're looking at Disney, ABC, Disney. They got ESPN, they have Marvel, they have Hulu, they didn't purchase Hulu until 2019. Sorry. They have everything else.
Star Wars. Don't forget Star Wars.
Star Wars. Thanks, Mike. Star Wars and everything. So are you willing to you are like ABC, like you'll be a part of the Walt Disney family, which opens the door for everything, every opportunity you want. I was like, but it's the NBA though. I was like, I get courtside seat tickets though. Like I get to operate games and get to call shots as a director over there. But where do you want to? Is this what you want? So then, after having a long sit down, like I think it was the weekend, I called the NBA. I went to Mike again on Monday, and I said, "Okay, we're gonna do ABC." So we had to come up with a way to like tell the NBA like I'm going to ABC. So I got Tiffany on the phone. We still talk to this day. Me and her were on the phone for about an hour because she was trying to get me to like not take it. And I told her, I was like, look, they pulled the trigger first. And it's like, is it a bigger company? And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. But our goal is to get you towards the basketball games as well as directing those other stuff. You're telling me they have a bigger opportunity for you over there. I was like, yeah. And they're going to pay a little more. So yeah, I ended up being at ABC, and we ended up talking. We still and I had to explain to everybody no hard feelings and so forth, but they pulled the trigger first. Now, if the NBA pulled the trigger first before ABC, then I definitely would have been at the NBA right now. But ABC pulled the trigger first. It's like, okay, you're hired, and that's how I ended up being at ABC, and I've been there roughly. We're talking 2018, like 4 years now. And throughout the 4 years, it's been a journey.
Before we jump into that, so and again, this is a great story, because this does happen to students where it's like, we worked on your resume, the resume's working, it's getting you opportunities, whether those opportunities worked out or the right fit or not, sure. But this was a tough one. I remember that. I remember us sitting down. And I was like, wow. Oh, so we had to do like the T chart, the pros, the cons. What are you going to get from this? What could you, are you willing to travel here? You're not there yet to travel. It's like, and you still had to finish the class. And there's a lot, a lot of things to consider. But like you said, ABC kind of pulled the trigger first. Which is true. You know, they sent the offer first, and you didn't burn a bridge. That's the other thing. You did not burn a bridge, which was absolutely fantastic. And you were honest about the whole situation, too. You were a hot commodity, and it's like you have these two companies that want you, and that's what happens. And it's sort of like that tug of war kind of thing. But you had to make a decision, and that's the way that is. But you did it in a way that was right. And like I said, you didn't burn a bridge, which is great.
Still talk to Tiffany to this day.
Which is great.
She still's like, so the offer's still on the table. I was like,
still.
But it's more like it would be a little. At this point, if I was to leave, it would not be for the position that was offered to me 4 years ago.
Right.
It would be more of a higher position.
Yeah.
So it was like to leave there and go back and reset, which is now I have a problem doing, but to reset now, it'll be going backwards. And when you're in this industry, the thing is you want to keep going forward and you want to keep going higher than the position you're given.
So then tell us about ABC News then.
Where do you want to start?
Oh boy. Well, we've got about 25 minutes. So then let's
all right, so let's condense it. So like I got thrown into the fire on the first week because we was doing hurricane coverage. I think it was a big hurricane that was coming to North Carolina. And, even though I had the skill set, I didn't know theory. So theory is basically how it's run, like workflow and so forth. So one day I made one big mistake. It was a tease box that went up, and I ended up hitting something, and it ended up we have a little video box that took the video box into black for one, like maybe a split second, and I had to switch it back. And I didn't, and usually stuff like that, people get mad, but not my team and not my boss. My boss was like, okay, it's gonna happen because it's human error. But the look on your face of you being terrified lets me know you take this serious. Because you have to understand when you're in this job, like the tiniest, it's not like mistakes are gonna happen regardless. Mistakes are gonna happen. It's all part of human. It's all part of you being human. But it's when you're able to catch and learn from it is the thing. So say if a channel goes black for like 2 seconds the first time, fine. But if you let it constantly happen again, that's when it starts setting off the bells and alarms, bells and whistles. So it's just you're gonna learn. It's just learning as you go. So me being the first day, it was like hurricane coverage, and I'm tossed into the fire, and I was training, so I'm like training and being tossed in the fire. I'm like, oh my god, this is too much. Usually some people would quit. Like when I went to lunch for like half hour, people thought I quit. I was like, he came back. Oh my God, he came back. I was like, yeah, I came back. I only went for lunch for 30 minutes. Say, yeah, most people, they leave and never come back. I'm like, why? Because this job is it's very intense for some people. And I was like, yeah, it is. I'm like coming from A&E, working in a 14-hour control room in intense environments, it's like for doing it now for like almost half the hours of the day, it becomes a sense of like you become numb to it. I became a little numb to like all of it. But I went from working from crime scene to like news overall, which is kind of like oof in itself because every day this is me coming in during the Trump White House. So every day he had press conferences. We was taking those press conferences, and after every press conference, he would make a crazy tweet. And every time he makes a crazy tweet, we would have to put it up we would have to put it up. Like we have to put it up on there. So we had tweets. We also had mass shootings. So like I get very superstitious at work for some reason. And there's like, oh, today's gonna be a great day. And I just knock on wood. I'm like, just stop, don't say nothing. Because when you say it's gonna be a great day, when you say things like that, it's most likely news would break. So when I think it was one Saturday. It was pretty calm. Nothing happened. You know, it was nothing was really going on, and we was training. And next thing you know, news broke because there was a mass shooting at a synagogue in Pennsylvania. This was me getting introduced on how to learn procedures about breaking news and special reports. So, like I've done special. Like my first special report was when John McCain passed away, and it was carrying his body from the hospital in Virginia all the way to Arizona, and then back to the state capitol where he lied. But that was about it in the funeral. But my very first introduction to the special was when the shooting happened in Pennsylvania, and we were like, "What do we do?" And I'm like, they was like, "Okay, just get all your get up everything, get the control rooms up, because we have like McCurdy's, and what McCurdy's are is basically like direct like transmission boxes that links us all together, and we turn those up, and we can hear everything that goes on in each control room." So once when that went up, and we started like listening into the control room, we're listening to what standards is saying. We're listening to what what the president of ABC was saying at the time, James Goldston, because he was there that day. And I don't know why he was in on the Saturday, but he was there that day. So he was there, and everything. Everyone had to find a way to be in sync. We all had to be in sync before we went on air. And then a lot of people who were off just started coming into work, or started just coming in and just getting this up, because it's like, the news never sleeps. Like, New York City never sleeps. News is also the entity that never sleeps. So we got it on there, and by then I started slowly learning procedures. I was learning what to do in news breaks, what to do when we get into a storm coverage, what to do if it's like if it's like a local story, like say for instance, I don't know, a car explosion that happened on 34th Street. Like we look for what's newsworthy and what is not newsworthy. That's what I learned right there. That's what I learned on that third week on the job. What is newsworthy and what is not newsworthy. And then on top of that, we had the midterms. That was the midterm year. So we were during the midterms, and we were learning how to, like, what are the procedures of that. And then after that, we started doing what we called the campaign trail, which was 2019, all the way until up into July, which was the second mass shooting we had. And I think this was in Austin, Texas. Yeah, it was the mass shooting that happened in Austin, Texas, where where I really worked an A&E hour when I was there. I was there from 7 a.m. and I did not get home until 12 a.m. that night. And I was off. Like, I was like, I'm not coming in. So they brought in other people who came in. And then when they was covering the aftermath of the Austin shooting, another one broke out in Dayton, Ohio. So it was mass shooting on mass shooting on. It was like mass shooting back to back. And it was just like, oh my God. But the thing is, you never know what can happen when you work in news. When you work in the news industry, you could be a production assistant, and they might say, "Hey, you know what? Do you know how to edit? Okay, you over here now. You edit over here now. Wait, can you operate? Can you operate this? You operate a camera? Are you union? Okay, so we're gonna put you on the camera now. Okay, yeah. Wait, even though you're a production assistant, do you know how to do, like, you know how to line produce and direct? Okay, we're gonna teach you how to line produce, direct, and then you're gonna do it from here. So basically, when you're in the news industry, and when you start breaking it into like television, it's not as like stagnant as film per se. Because in film, it's like you got to be on these type of jobs for like maybe 10 to 15 years before you would get before you get to a certain level. Whereas the television industry, they just throw you in the fire anywhere, everywhere, and try to, like, navigate from there. So they keep you from and you also get a chance to move up as well. So it's just like they blend you in. It's like a constant blending. So even though your title might say production assistant, you might be a line producer or a producer, and you just don't even know it.
Wearing a lot of hats and being highly adaptable.
Yep, that's the first. Like, that's what they do.
Well, if anybody has any questions, put it in the chat. I did want to ask about some of these things too, about like your experiences. Like, what's the difference between line producing, or you know, what are some of those things that you've noticed, people that you've worked with, and what do they do and how are they different?
So a line producer is basically the person who is getting everybody in, is being sure they're coordinating with everybody in the control room. They're also checking lower thirds, they're double checking and so forth. What the producer does, I don't know, at ABC is basically they cut the package, they they set the shot, they set the booking date, they coordinate with the EPs, the coordinating producers, as well as standards to say, hey, I'm doing this story on this. Do we have the clearance and approval to do that? And then they're going back and forth for legal just to get clearance and look at the legality of things and being sure it's ready to clear the air, ready to clear to go on air. And do we have this? And we're also budgeting. We're also contacting other third parties to be sure that we got captioning, be sure we get network captioning that goes on air. It's basically to make sure that whatever package or whatever piece we're promoting, not promoting, piece we're putting on air goes off without a hitch. So that's a producer. A line producer is making sure that it's checking for it's like tidying up the or being like the second line of defense or the first line of defense to catch certain mistakes on the to catch certain mistakes from what the producer may have missed.
Quality control.
Yeah, it's quality control. So yeah, it's quality control. So it's what it does. And we have a quality control person there, but it's like a producer can't just do it all alone. It needs like 10 different eyes before it goes on air, or have 10 different eyes watching while it's on air.
Right. What are some of the other things that you think are key to the work that you do? Fact checking, maybe, or even sending things to legal?
Yes. So you have to fact check. You have to be sure everything you put on the air is accurate as it can be. And it has to be indisputable to an extent. So you gotta be sure what you're saying is true and it can be proven. If not, you can lose credibility in the industry, as well as you can also bring down a whole news organization by doing that, by not being sure your facts are straight. So I will give a prime example. So the Mueller report, BuzzFeed released a story on the Mueller report, and then the Mueller team came out and disputed that and said that's not true. That kind of like BuzzFeed got shredded for weeks for that, and it started losing its credibility. So when you're looking for those type of stories, you got to be sure it's true and be sure it can be proven. If not, you can hurt a lot of people in the process. And you also have to be sure you're an FCC compliant too, because if they don't, they'll fine you. So every end of the year training, we get this EAS, which is Emergency Alert Systems buzz, and everyone hears it because it goes dee, 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 and you can hear it. So if it ever went on air, you could get fined for it, and it could basically cost you your job to not do that compliance training. So to do that training, you just got to watch out, because if that EAS goes up on air, mostly what the FCC does is that they fine you heavy. So I think NBC, that went up on NBC once, they got fined $5 million. ESPN, they got fined $8 million. Fox got fined, because it went up on Fox 5 times, and they got fined 20. So, and ABC and Disney, we got fined roughly, I think it went up one time a year during the whole height of the George Floyd riots that went on air. And yeah, it was not pretty. You have to pay attention to certain details like that. You have to understand detail and learn everything to a T on how to be in the news industry or any form of entertainment industry,
Your coworkers and just being there, and you're learning by being there and seeing this and learning it beforehand, because you probably didn't know that beforehand about FCC regulations and whatnot. So you would learn that on the job from even some of your colleagues, right? So you're like you said, you're always learning.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I'm always learning. It's never it's never nonstop. So sometimes I may act like a know-it-all, but then I get hit with something, I get blindsided by something else, and I'm like, okay, let me humble myself and start learning how to do this. Let me humble myself and start learning how to do that. And it's just, you got to have that approach coming in. It's always, you're always in a constant form, in a constant form of learning. So it's something that you just have to, it's something you have to not only adapt or adjust to, it's just something that has to be instilled in you. Like, you have to be in the form of learning. So,
Right.
and it's like, I'm learning how to do that. Like, I'm still learning every day. Like, even in my position, I'm learning how to do new things. I'm learning how to, like, keep the channel on air if it goes down. Well, yeah, learning how to keep the channel on air, knowing new procedures, knowing new things, because it's more ways than, yeah, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. So I'm just learning how to do it. I only learned 40 ways how to do it. I'm trying to learn 1,000. That's all.
Well, our intern here, Marwa, I think she has a question too that she wanted to add in.
Okay.
And if anybody does have questions, please add it to the chat. I know there's a couple questions here that we will address before we're done for today. Marwa, what question do you have for Jehosephat?
Okay, because you mentioned like about running tasks and stuff, and I was wondering, how did you manage your time or still manage your time effectively between managing tasks, setting up proper equipment for a program or an event? Also, if you ever feel like you're under stress or you can't really manage your time, how do you do or build the ability to operate in high stress situations?
Wow, that's a question. So you can always build your time. Like, you always can. So basically, with me in my situation, things just became a little more innate, and I started learning how to, not innate, started becoming more instilled. So like, when you feel like I'm going 100 miles an hour, just take a breath, and relax, and get yourself under control, and know that never rush yourself, never let production beat you. Never let broadcast beat you down to a point where you're just like, ugh, you start panicking on the job, because then when one person panics, everybody panics. So the thing is that you have to keep yourself in control throughout the times. And then when everything is to a point where it's calm, then you take a little time break, then you take a little break, come back, regroup, reassess. Because, like, you have to do that, because we're humans we're human beings at the end of the day. We all got to come back and reassess. And then we just go and then we tackle the next task. So at the end of the day, we don't let production, you don't let production rush you. You don't let live events, stuff like that, rush you. You can always, that's why you have certain equipments there that can help you, relieve some of that stress, like replaying it back, or starting it back at the top, or starting when the event first started, So it's ways of doing it. It's ways to, like, manage your time to where you don't have to be super stressed out, or don't let the job stress you out, and so forth. So it's just basically not letting production. Basically, in a nutshell, don't let production rush you. Don't let it rush you. You always can get the event back up.
Absolutely. No, and problem solving and troubleshooting too.
Yes.
You're thinking on your feet.
You're always thinking on your feet, because you got to figure out what happens if the channel goes black. What do you have? What are your backup sources? What are your go-tos when things go awry? So that's all put in procedures as well. So just in case if shit hit the fan, you know what to go to, you know what to do, and so forth. It's about keeping yourself grounded, and it's not about letting your emotions get the best of you in a situation. So it's like knowing to keep your emotions checked, as well as keep your emotions checked, is not to let your anxiety or feeling the fact of being overstressed take over everything, because when that happens, oh, it could be a shit day. It could be a shit show.
Right. I do want to ask you a question though, because again, there's a lot of stuff here. There's a lot of stuff being in the control room and doing the work that you do, and then the nature of the business itself in terms of the type of news, war, shooting, riots, a global pandemic. My question is, have you surprised yourself in terms of how much you were able to handle and adapt? That's the thing. sometimes you could actually put yourself into that situation, this high stress situation, but you actually may have surprised yourself that you were able to do that. Or did you always know that you had this ability, but this is the kind of thing that was the test?
It was more so, I don't think it was more, I think it's a little of both. Like, but I just, maybe I was surprising myself and I didn't even know. I didn't even know I was doing it. It was just like I just stood grounded, like tried to my best. And my mom always said, just stay grounded. Don't overreact. Don't overthink. Just just focus on what's ahead. And also at the same time looking at ahead and also able to look from side to side. So it's basically learning how to multitask and as well like that's a skill like no one ever speaks on it and no one ever like ever thinks it but multitask is a skill is a great skill set to have like like you guys it's like juggling 20 different things and at the same time having a conversation that's a skill set having a conversation with 10 different people that's a skill set so me during the whole riots, election week, protests, and now we're war. It's more like it's just stand grounded and just stand the procedures. It stands to certain things. That's why we have certain procedures put in place. So just in case if stuff like this ever happens and we go into like DEFCON 3 or World War 3, we're able to like buckle the hat, buckle down and able to take care of what we need to take care of and being sure that we are able to be able to handle things and able to step in when need be, you know, like when to step in as a director, when to step in as a producer. Because like not everybody knows what's going to be around. Like not everybody's not going to be around because I get it. Some people got lives and some people want to live their lives too. But you have to put on many different hats and you have to also be able to like get knowing the news, knowing the business, and knowing that you know, anything can happen at a split second. It's like you have to have. It's more of a mental preparedness. It's like you got to have your mind ready. It's like you got to be ready so you don't have to never get ready. You know.
I want to add that, sometimes students will, I'll have these conversations with students about, this is the nature of the job. Can you handle it? And, you know, I, I think people surprise themselves in terms of what they're able to kind of learn, adapt, then be able to build up their multitasking. Not everybody has those skills on point while they're a college student. You're gaining experiences through an internship. The whole point is it goes back to what you said before. It's lifelong learning. You're always learning. You're always going to grow, and you're always going to hone these skills as time goes on and in these situations. So let's get back to some of these questions here because we're short on time. Gawain is asking, what was your position for the A&E internship and how did you get the internship?
That wasn't an internship. That was actually a full-time job.
Mm.
So I got that job also just a shot in the dark as well. So that was full time and I just applied. I just went there and I just applied for it. And I think a person just looked at their resume and just gave me the position. It wasn't, I didn't like, I hate to say it, but I didn't know anybody in this industry when I was starting. Like I had a few connects over at HBO. I had a few friends over at CNN, but most of the stuff was mostly a shot in the dark. Was mostly a shot in the dark and just hoping the dice roll. You know, that was it. Was oof, learning how to work that position and doing that 5 days a week while being in school was just not was a little wearing and tearing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Milton's saying that the story has been really inspiring, and he wants to thank you for sharing. And what did you do outside of class to help you develop these skills? Did you work on any freelance things, or did you create your own content?
I worked on a lot of freelance stuff. So I was working at DCTV, and I was just like doing a lot of live switching and doing a lot of live in-house events for free. Learning how to live switch, live direct, live cut edit everything else for like clients and everything else and editing like editing their like their events sending it back to them and was getting good feedback on it and it was stressful at first. I was like, I'm not getting paid to do this. I'm not doing anything. It's not helping. And I think John Alpert, who's like a documentary extraordinaire who won multiple awards, Academy Awards, was like, you're learning television. That's what they do in television. That's what they're going to constantly do. You're going to have to do something live, cut it, send it back on the re-air with a few edits and a few fixes. And fixes, if anyone don't know, it means updates, like updated information put into the story and so forth. I mean, yeah, updated information that's put it into the original package or the story, and you send it up to air. So it was learning. I'll say it was like it was a very it was I was learning without not knowing I was learning something.
Mm.
And actually I'm able to apply that now. So I'm like, maybe it wasn't that bad.
That's what I always tell
maybe it
you.
did pay off. Maybe it did pay off. Maybe that did pay off. Like
Yes,
so
that's
it's
what
like
I always tell you. I always tell you that.
that,
Look at the experience. What are you leveraging from it? There's stuff that you might not like or whatever, but
mhm.
there's a lot of stuff here that you've mentioned that it's like they were really great foundations for where you are now.
Yeah. So it's like when you and no one will understand like when I was like and like being at A&E, which was like even though it was brutal, I learned a lot. Like I learned like you gotta juggle 20 different things at one time. You gotta know when stuff goes awry, how to troubleshoot and how to get it back up on there without no one knows that it was off air. Like of course someone's gonna catch a little blip here and there, but as long as they didn't mention everything, it's fine. And also, we started learning about streaming, which is which everyone is going towards now. So, like every news organization is starting to have their own streaming platform service,
Yeah, yeah.
which is except for CNN Plus, who's canceling in another 10 days or so.
That's the nature of the media industry, right?
Hmm.
Things happen fast
Hmm.
and furious. Companies are absorbed. Most recently, Warner Media and Discovery, right? So the merger of that, and that's just everybody has to be, flexible and just be aware of the news.
Yeah, and it's like, and if you think you off, if you're working in this industry, especially news business, you're not off. If you think you're off, you're not off, because something can happen where your boss can say, "Hey, this happened. We might need an extra body." So that's why I'd be like, "Please just be a quiet day."
Well, don't say it too loud,
Like,
like you said, because then you might jinx yourself.
so I knock on wood here. So yeah, it's
DCTV is
more.
Downtown Community Television Center for students that don't know, and I think they're still in operation, I believe, down in Lafayette.
Oh, they still there. They still there. I just got off the phone with somebody from there, and they was like, I think before I joined Discord, it's like, can you come help us how to do broadcasting right quick? Just help us a little bit here and there. And I was like, no problem.
It's a great
So
resource. It's a great
it
resource
is
though for students.
it's a great resource for college students. They have programs that can teach you how to get into the film industry as well as help you with the television industry.
Yeah. So DCTV, I would definitely tell students look that up online for sure. And then
So DCTV, what's the it's one here in Brooklyn. What's the name of it?
Brick Arts.
Brick Arts, and it's the one that's Manhattan Neighborhood Television.
Oh, that's right. Brick
So
Arts.
those are starters. Those help you get in the door. Like you want to know about live television, those areas, those things, those outlets will definitely help you break into the industry.
Manhattan, what was it? Manhattan Community Television or
No, Manhattan Neighborhood Television.
Manhattan
Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Yeah, Manhattan Neighborhood. And they also got one called Bronx Neighborhood Network as well, and they still got one in Queens. So it's there, like it's there, but even though it's kind of a little underfunded and understaffed, you can still get a lot. You still can get a lot for everything,
Absolutely.
And
No, yeah. Go ahead.
you can basically get a lot, and they can teach you a lot, and it can teach you how to do more with less and how to work with more with less. So it's great. So it's a great resume builder, as I said.
Yeah, sometimes even if they don't have a lot of funds, but you really learn the nitty gritty and how to be I keep saying adaptable, but being able to kind of like learn how to do new things, but less. Okay.
Less, but so yeah.
Well, no, there's a lot of great stuff. I mean, we can go a full 2 hours, honestly.
Yeah, maybe another 4.
Well, let me get to this last question here because we're about out of time. But Wendell is asking what were the position they placed you at prior to trusting elevating you responsibilities as an assistant technical director in the control room. Yeah, how did you start there at ABC News? What was like the first role or first duty that they had you do?
So I was taking down live events at first, and they said, you know what? Breaking news, get on. All right, we need you to technical direct now. We need you to live switch the shots and switch out. We need you to switch between we need you to switch between control rooms and live events. Start doing that right now. Okay, since you're gonna be here by yourself, all right, start writing out lower thirds. Start pitching your stories and start writing out lower thirds. So it was gradually. And it wasn't like it happened in like a year or two. It was like a week. It was after week after week after week after week after week to do this. So I was like, one week I was learning how to be a technical director. The following week I was learning how to be a producer. The following week after that, I was learning how to be an operator, operating a playout server. The week after that, I was learning how to pitch stories and pitch live events that we might want to put on air. So it was it was really running the gauntlet. You was really, yeah, it was a real run. So it doesn't it what just know that it doesn't stay stagnant. It's not You're not gonna be stagnant. They're just gonna make you do. You just be ready when you get in the news industry, or whether it's ABC, NBC, CNN. Just get ready to do 100 things at once. Just prepare yourself. Prepare your mind that, okay, I'm about to start doing 100 things at once. Even though my title might say production coordinator, just know that you might be a senior producer. Just know that you might be a senior editor. Just know that you're going to be making calls on certain channels. And if you get those calls wrong, you might have to answer for that. So, and I'm not doing it to scare you, but just understand that each action you do, just understand there's going to be a reaction and there's going to be consequences behind that.
Okay, so we're just about out of time. I do want to ask one more question. Where do you see yourself then in the next couple of years? Like, what's your next, like career goal, or where do you see yourself kind of going?
It's more like senior producer now. So I'm like in this wedge here. So it's like I'm in multiple positions, but I'm trying to branch off into one, and I'm being told, not by at work, but I'm being my friends around me are saying, "Hey, you doing 20 different jobs, and even though they're paying you okay for it, you still want to show you still want to show that you're still the jack of all trades." I said, once you get into a senior producer position, or a senior position, you oversee all of that, and at the same time, you're still learning the back end of everything. You're learning behind the curtains, behind the curtains. You want to know what's going on behind the curtains and what's behind those curtains as well. So it's layers. So you're learning layers as you go. So that will be me in another maybe year or so. So the next 5 years is more like just being a producer, just being a regular television producer. And yeah, being a regular television producer, and also branching off a little bit more. Like, I'm not going to always be in news. I might break into sports, or break into somewhat narrative television, because from what I heard, it's a little more easier. But having this discipline actually gets you prepared, and actually puts you way ahead of the game than everyone else.
Yeah, and your competition, absolutely. I'm glad you said that, because that is exactly what that is. And when we talk about where you're going to go next, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about exactly that. And then, of course, the NBA.
The NBA, of course, they just wanted, yeah, because it's like they realize I'm a little more advanced. So when you start explaining these type of things, or me start going into details about, the back end, the procedures, the learning, and how advanced you are, they get a little scared, because they start thinking about, how much is this guy going to cost, or how much is this, how much does he want? I know I'm getting all of this, but I don't, like, right now. We're in a budge right now, because the market's not doing, the economy. I mean, not the economy. The markets are doing bad and things like that. But It's how much they're willing to spend for you and how much you're willing to negotiate. Because you gotta be willing to negotiate as well. You're not gonna like I know like some of y'all want to negotiate $1 million, but you're not gonna just be realistic. You're not gonna always get that $1 million deal, or you're not gonna always get the 6 figures you want. Like say you want 190,000, you're not get that, and they might come with maybe 160, 165. You could then leverage and say, give me 170. Get something that's close to the number that you want.
Right. So go with the larger number, but you really want, so go with 190, you really want 170, they come back at 160, then you meet in the middle, and then you actually got what you wanted.
Yeah, what you wanted. Yeah. And everyone walks away happy. So right. it's really a tough negotiation. And that's what everybody wants, like, to try to like fight you on. And I'm like, no. So that's what everyone needs, you know.
Well, we're out of time. Actually, we went over time, but I mean, again, this was all really great stuff, both you and Marcos. I think there was a lot of amazing advice here, a lot of insight into what you guys do on a daily basis. And I really truly think that it's valuable, and I'm glad that students can listen. They have asked questions. This is the realities of what it is to work at some of these organizations and to be prepared. You know, I love it when alumni come back and they kind of share this insight, because it helps students make that informed decision, helps them prepare to see what's coming next. You know, and you know, what are the challenges like, and how do you stay adaptable, and how you're always going to learn. So there's a lot of really amazing stuff here. Jehosephat, if people want to stay in touch with you, I mean, would you suggest LinkedIn?
Yeah, because emails, I'm just like, I get 1,000 of them a day,
right?
And I'll be like just passing by. But yeah, that's mostly LinkedIn. You can stay with me through LinkedIn. Yeah, that's about it. Just LinkedIn, and send me a message. I'm not afraid to answer. I'll answer. If I don't get back to you within probably 20 minutes, I won't forget you. Just that I'm been busy, and I'll probably either get back to you maybe later that night when I'm off, or the following day.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think after hearing your experiences, I think everyone here knows that you are extremely busy and that you could be extremely busy. So always mind the mailbox of alumni who you know is working in this type of field, especially when it comes to news. I think we covered a lot of stuff here today. So this was really amazing. Thank you, Jehosephat, for taking the time out to speak with students today.
Yeah.
I know you're always busy.
No problem. Yeah. But thank you all, man.
All right. Enjoy the afternoon, everyone, and I will talk to you again. If anybody wants to make an appointment with me, email me directly. You have my email. So thank you all, and have a great afternoon.
Make sure to check out the My Career tab on the BC Navigator app, where you can track your career progress based on the amount of credits you've earned, stay updated on upcoming events from the Magna Center, and watch our videos for insight and advice on your career field.